Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at the old age question, do I need travel insurance? So the answer is yes, if you're traveling overseas, and we state that up front and very clearly because it's not to sell travel insurance or it's not to be friendly with travel insurers. We're not interested in that whatsoever. We want to make sure people are properly protected. I want to say straight up front that if you go overseas and you have some sort of medical problem or any type of problem that requires a financial cost, the government is not going to help you. They've made that very clear. And the reason is because if they did, then no one would get travel insurance. So that would cost the government a lot more and it would just be a very slippery slope. So we've put together this guide, which I'm going to talk to you through, and we've linked down below to the MoneyHub site and this URL within the video description. And I just want to talk about like some of the things to be aware of around travel insurance because many people have never bought it before and they're going away and they just want to understand exactly what to look for and what things to avoid. So without further ado, we see travel we see travel insurance as a safeguard for travelers, protecting them from unforeseen events, usually relating to medical emergencies. But you can also have your trip disrupted, you can have cancellations, late flights, misconnections, things like that, and also lost bags and stolen things as well. Those are the primary protections that a travel insurance policy will cover. And then too often people go overseas and they haven't got it, or sometimes very unfortunately they do have it, but the limits aren't, the cover isn't enough. So you may get into a terrible situation in the US and incur millions of dollars of medical costs, but your policy only covers, say, $250,000 or $500,000. Sounds like a lot, but when things go wrong, they can go very wrong. And of course, that shortfall needs to be usually crowdfunded, and that's why we see these give a little pages for people even with travel insurance. So very scary, and we don't want people to be underinsured. At the same time, we don't want them to pay too much for insurance. So I'm just going to talk to you. I'm going to talk through some of the things that are kind of important for making a decision about buying policy. So we're looking at well, first question is, do I need it? And then is it a legal requirement? And then also what are the options? And then policy types and frequently asked questions. So without further ado, I'll just kind of talk this through. Uh, from what we've seen, and this is all pre-COVID, because of course the data kind of has not been that relevant for 2020 to 2022, because no one was traveling that much, is that in 2019, $173 million of claims were paid out, which is incredibly a lot. I mean, it's incredible, an incredible amount of money. And we can see from that about 1/4 of that almost was paid out by Southern Cross. That just shows you, well, first of all, how many policies they sell, but also the fact that there's a lot of claims being made. And these are successful claims. But of course, unsuccessful claims or denied claims don't get paid out. So we can see that there's a lot of stuff happening overseas, which causes people to make claims. And if they have the right cover, then that should go well. If they don't have the right cover, or if there's exceptions or exemptions from that, then of course there's no claims. That's not the point of this video. We've got related videos for that. We just want to say that there's a huge amount of money being paid to travel for travel insurance policies, but at the same time, there's a huge amount of money being paid out to the policyholders when their claims get approved. So this article from the 2019 Herald, that is interesting because it's saying that many overseas hospitals, including parts of the US, they require upfront payments before starting treatment. So if you don't have travel insurance, then that's going to be a big kind of life or death thing in some situations, or at worst, actually at best, very uncomfortable. So this is something to be very much aware of. We just downloaded the financial statements for Southern Cross. We wanted to understand exactly how much money they pay out, and also what percentage of that is towards their claims policies. Towards their total policy revenue. And we saw from this graphic here that $76 million was taken in 2019 policies, and $44 million was paid out. And then we can see that the previous year, around 71 million taken in and 42 million or thereabouts paid out. So the claim ratio is about it's about 59%. And the reason that is so high is because, of course, lots of people are making claims, and they're obviously assessing them accordingly and then paying that out. Now, I mean, of course, if people made lots of claims, there's no cap, for how much they'll pay out apart from what's in the policy. So some years could be more, and certainly in the case of the start of COVID, then yes, of course, there were huge amounts of claims and not much premium coming in. And so, of course, it wasn't very profitable. So we've ignored all of those financials because we just want to look at sort of historic data and say that we agree with seeing the numbers here, seeing how much money is paid out, knowing that there's a whole bunch of Kiwis out there, that are not insured. We really want to say we agree with the Safe Travel website, which is the government, and it says that if you can't afford travel insurance, then you can't afford to travel. And so that is very, very clear that it's a real big risk if you don't have it, because you're liable for all sorts of costs, and you may have no means to pay for them. Now, popular question: is travel insurance a legal requirement? The answer is no, it's not. You can certainly travel without it. Many people do, but as I've said, if you get into financial trouble overseas, i.e., you've got lots of bills, or you lose stuff and you need to replace them, or you just have a big loss from something, then travel insurance, of course, is absolutely invaluable there. What you will see, though, is people charge different prices for travel insurance, and that comes down to what's included in the policy. So don't think that just because it's cheap is the best, certainly, or it's the same as something else. It's not. You do need to compare very studiously and make sure you understand the policies, and that's something that we've lots of resources into throughout MoneyHub to make sure that it's clear, and we've compared insurance policies side by side. We've done all sorts of things just to bring out the information and help people make a better decision. Now, these are some questions and sort of responses and tips that we've put together based on what we've been asked by our users and just general research. So what kind of travel insurance do I need? This is a question that lots of people ask if they haven't bought it before. Really, it depends on where you're going, how long you're going for, your age, your health, planned activities, things like that. What we suggest is just doing a full price comparison across the insurance. And we've got some comprehensive guidance here if you want to click to our travel insurance comparison, which I've also linked to down in the video description. And so what is suitable for you is very different to what's suitable to somebody else. And that could be even if you're flying to the same place, because everyone has different needs at different durations, different ages, pre-existing conditions, things like that. How much travel insurance do I need? So this is going to come down to what you're traveling with. Do you have expensive items? Do you have, any type of special things that you're trying to insure for? Cancellation costs. Have you pre-booked a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to risk not getting, getting paid out for? Whereas some people won't pre-book much at all, so there's not a huge risk of cancellation costs should they not be able to travel. So just really understanding, what you need, and looking at also medical benefits. My view is always to maximize on the medical, because that's going to be the largest cost. It's going to be more expensive if something goes wrong than any phone or any lost laptop or any iPad or anything like that, any stolen passport or stolen wallet. But it's going, yeah. So that's why we've always, and my view is always, make sure the medical is sufficient. And I personally don't travel with much stuff myself, but that's, I'm not everybody, of course, and that's why there's lots of options when you're putting together a travel insurance quote. So kind of related to what I've just talked about, does my travel insurance cover my possessions? The answer to that is yes. It just depends for how much and in what capacity. So there's always limits. You can't just take anything away with you, and if you lose it or it gets stolen, well, then you get paid out. and you've got to follow the policy document very closely and make sure that you follow the process for trying to, filing police reports and all sorts of things like that to make sure that your claim is properly valid. And then what else does travel insurance cover? So, besides medical expenses and personal belongings, you can get cover for cancellations or could at the same time curtailments. Say you have to leave the trip early, something's happened back home with a close loved person and it qualifies, then you can get flights back quickly. Travel delays, personal liability, should you damage something so involuntarily, then you can get legal assistance and things like that. And then in some cases, COVID-19 things. But you have to be very careful because every insurance policy is different, and so it will vary, and not one insurer is selling the same sort of policy as another generally. What typically isn't covered? So we've got a whole bunch of information there, and there's a video which talks about all of the exclusions, and it's really important to have a read of that because that is significantly, uh, you know, that's really important. It catches people out. People don't know that stuff wasn't covered when they bought the policy. So we always suggest before you buy a policy, make sure you understand what the general exclusions are, so that you are properly informed and you're not buying something that you won't be able to use. And then, do I need extra cover for adventure sports? So if you're going skiing, things like that. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Some of them will include skiing cover, and some of them won't. Some of them will let you do things. Others will require some sort of like add-on policy, which you just pay for the number of days you're going to be doing it, or maybe overall. It really depends on the insurer. So the answer is it will depend. And where can I compare travel insurance? We've got a strong starting point, which I suggest looking at our travel insurance comparison guide. And that takes you through a whole bunch of different options just to give you an idea of what's available. And we also have a very comprehensive list of travel insurers, which you can see here, and we've published that to make sure it's as comprehensive as it possibly can be, because we know that insurance is sold by airlines, it's sold by, directly by different insurers online, it's sold by travel agencies, it's sold by the banks through credit card benefits, and it's also sold by general insurers. So some of the names you'll be quite familiar with. Uh, Include, if I look at like One Cover, so that's a major travel insurer, and then you've got the likes of AA Travel Insurance, AMI, so that also sells travel insurance, Covermore, NIB, State, Southern Cross, Tower, and then some sort of more niche brands, which are all part of other large companies who underwrite it all. And then you've got the airlines, as I said, so you also have Air New Zealand, Jetstar and Qantas, they all sell their own policies. Then you've got your travel agencies, so your online as well as your in-person travel agencies. And then you've got the bank policies, which you can see from the platinum and gold credit cards. And then you've got general insurers here, who some of them are able to provide online quotes, and some of them aren't. So just be aware that it's really helpful to compare everything, and get a range of quotes, and don't just go with whatever is being told to you that, oh, this is the best travel insurance, and just get it. It's really important to make an informed choice. And we've published enough guides, and we sort of keep bringing out more videos and more resources to make sure you understand exactly what you're getting into. Now, the claims process is very interesting. We have a dedicated guide to that, so make sure that if you are going to file a claim later on, then you know exactly what's covered, as part of the process, and that you follow it, because people get into difficulty and things drag out when they haven't followed the claims process. So as soon as you have a problem overseas, it's always best to notify your travel insurer so you're with it. So you start sort of getting into their system, knowing that there's going to be a claim. You can ask them advice, and then make an informed decision there and get the information that you need to, be able to make the claim. So make sure you know the claims process. There's no point buying travel insurance and then finding out, later on, and just have a look through it once you are about to buy it. And then travel insurance and government travel advisories. So safe travel is always going through and, sort of rating countries and like what it says about them. So whilst you'll probably be fine if you travel to Australia, you can see that it's basically normal. It's got a normal state. There's nothing there. But if you go, unfortunately, to something like Afghanistan, then you will find it's a little bit more problematic, and what to say the least. And actually, it's not going to work because the website is actually not that reliable. It only seems to load some countries and not others. If you click on, say, Argentina, so that's fast, and you can say it's just saying basically be cautious, but it's not saying please don't travel. So one example of please don't travel is I will click on Afghanistan and I will make sure it loads on a separate system. Hang on. So we couldn't load the guide to Afghanistan, which is annoying, but we can get Algeria. And then it said that if you are going to travel within 50 Ks of Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, and Tunisia, then you're going to have threats. And so I would say the travel insurance policy probably wouldn't cover you if you were traveling within those borders. So and now we've got Afghanistan, and it's got a general do not travel to Afghanistan. And that is saying that you've just basically, there's huge threats. So it's a do not travel. So always check exactly where you're going prior to departure so that you know whether or not your insurance will be covered. And if it is a do not travel, then you can look to cancel things and start getting paid out for that. And then looking at the excess, we've got a specialist guide. That's just showing people exactly that if you pay more for an excess, i.e., if it's going to cost you $200 to make a claim, then that's going to be one price for the policy. But if you change your excess to zero, so that you can make as many claims as you want and you'll never lose the $200 per claim, then the insurance policy is going to be higher. So there's many different types of travel insurance for different purposes. There's family and group travel insurance, so you'll travel together. There's annual policies, and then there's specialized. So that's if you're doing lots of trips per year. Of course, there is a cap usually on the number of days you can be traveling outside of New Zealand, but that's good to be aware of. And then there's specialized cover for senior travelers. So that's if you're 70 plus or if you're 80 plus, then there's some policies there. And then if you want to get cover for specialist sort of electronic devices, then you'll need to make sure that you know what they're worth and go through the process of getting a price or a quote cover them if they're going to be above the standard limits that's set by the policy. And then if you're looking for COVID-19 cover, some insurers offer it, some don't. So just be aware that if that's important, you will have to make sure it's included. Please don't assume that it's going to be without looking at the policy. Now, finally, some frequently asked questions about purchasing travel insurance. How far in advance do I need to buy it? Well, the answer is the sooner that you buy it before your trip, then the less chance that you'll lose out for cancellation cover. And so if that's a benefit, so basically that means that if you have a trip and then you get sick, then you're not going to be covered if you don't have insurance prior to it, if you need to reschedule. But if you do have insurance and that is a benefit, then you will be covered. And then does it include pre-existing conditions? Well, the answer is you're going to have to disclose those to the insurer and see what they say. And it's going to vary by condition, of course, but it's also going to vary by the insurer. And then, can I buy travel insurance after I've started the trip? You can, but you've usually got a stand down period about, prior to when you can start making claims. So not always that great. It's best to organize it prior to departure. Otherwise, you'll just get like higher premiums and it'll just be stressful. And then, is the cheapest travel insurance the best option for me? It really comes down to what's in the policy. It could be, So you're just going to have to compare and see what's out there and just make an informed decision from that. And then, do I need specialist travel insurance for a cruise? The answer to that is yes. We've got a dedicated guide. And the reason is because lots of things to do with the cruise go into international waters. They go into private medical facilities. So even if you're doing a cruise of New Zealand, you're not going to be part of the New Zealand healthcare system when you're on a cruise because you're being treated by an international company. And then what happens if I don't buy travel insurance? Well, the answer is you're basically putting yourself at risk financially. And if something comes up and you need some medical assistance, then you have to cover the bills. If you have to cancel, then you'll have to wear any cancellation costs or the whole flights and the hotels if they're non-cancelable, for example. And then the loss of personal belongings and anything else that a travel insurance policy normally covers. And then, do I need it for traveling within New Zealand? This is travel insurance, of course. The answer is it really depends. Medical coverage, we would say no, that's not insurance advice or any financial advice. But we see that it's useful for, say, cancelled flights or car rental access and stuff like that. And we've done a separate guide to it, but we're not so sure on like whether or not it has an overall benefit. It really depends on where you're traveling, how long for, who with, and your age and your risks. So thanks very much for watching. I hope this explains about the age-old the question, do you really need travel insurance? We want to make these guides as comprehensive as possible, as I've said, so please leave us comments and we will respond to those. And for anything specific to your travel insurance policy, please contact your insurer. Thank you.